Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. It must be time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing on this evening?
I'm doing well. Yes, it must be time. It must be
It
that
must be that time. Um, yes, mixing it up a little bit for our zero viewers.
time.
Maybe someday a robot society will dig up the archives of these videos. And
Man, it's so sad. We don't even have the Google bot come over
I
anymore.
know the Googlebot doesn't even like us anymore. It's the Googlebot has just decided that
Oh man,
we're
yeah, these
safe.
guys.
There's nothing to worry about anymore.
Yeah, so that's okay. I mean, I'll still doodle for the next half hour and set up a
Yeah,
flash.
well, again, once we're, big and famous and people are looking for dirt on us and, trying
Man,
to trying to
maybe put,
ruin our good reputation, they can retreat to these archives and find all the ammo that they want.
yeah, they can find a way to cancel us or something. If they hodgepodge something together, maybe. Who knows?
Who knows? Any
All
case,
right.
what do you
Well,
have in store for us today?
I'll share my screen. We're doing the same thing we've been doing the past now I think 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
which is I'll be working on the Flash file itself and just making organizational, boring kind of stuff, but it kind of it's helpful for me when I'm animating to kind of navigate and find a label to navigate the file. So we're in
Mm-hmm.
Act Two, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of putting little flagpoles down each scene. It's a hard cut for a shot for the most part, generally
Mm-hmm.
speaking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as we work through this, you'll see that yeah, we're kind of revisiting Act Two in general, like in these little kind of quick snapshots kind of way. So it's kind of nice anyway to kind of just get my head around it again, like what am I going to do here and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anyway, yeah, that's the general gist of it. Um, so yeah, just grabbing keyframes, changing the name. So in this case, I'm doing a naming convention here of Act Two, which is represented by the two, and then the shot is 54 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'll find the next one to go to shot 55. Where's the hard cut? And there it is. So I will now turn this one into 55, and away we go.
All right.
So
Well.
I wanted to kind of, as I'm doing this kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
one thing I wanted to mention to you is I have a new game addiction because I just got rid of Shovel Knight, as you heard last
Yeah.
week. I kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
at home, which I couldn't stand it. So I hate to say it, but I almost feel terrible saying it, but I am a MOBA fan. I used to play Dota all the time, and Dota 2. I used to play it on the what was it? Was it Warcraft that started that?
It
I
was
can't
a
remember.
Warcraft 3 mod. I remember you
Yeah.
telling me about it when we worked
Oh
in
my gosh.
WB, and that was 2007.
Yeah, that's it's been a long yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah.
So well, meanwhile, Pokemon Niantic they they made a new mobile game called Pokemon Unite, and I'm playing that and it's scratching that MOBA itch that I kind of abandoned years ago. And oh man, I have to say it's pretty fun if you're a Pokemon fan. It's different, but I'm enjoying it thoroughly. It's really annoying.
Well, would someone who literally loathes MOBAs as the worst invention in the history of video games enjoy
Oh
this
man,
game?
really? Wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know you hated it. I just thought you were just annoyed by them. But
I
no,
I don't. I'm being hyperbolic, of course, but I'm not a fan of MOBAs. Would someone who's not a fan of MOBAs find any interest in this particular project?
I don't know. It's the same thing. Like, would you play? Do you play anything that has Pokemon on it? You know, versus like like Mario. Would you probably play anything with Mario on it, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't own any of the Mario Party games, and I haven't bought a
Oh,
Mario sports title since the Wii, I think.
okay. So you do have a discerning taste for Mario.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I don't tend to be a franchise, uh, 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 um, like a blind franchiser, right?
Yeah, yeah. You don't follow everything that they set their label on.
Yeah. If I don't like something, generally speaking, I won't get it. Now, I will bend the rules. Like I was pretty confident I wasn't gonna like Metroid Dread. Um,
But you know what that was? That was because you're a fan of Metroid in general, and you
right,
want to see a successful
right.
title come in these days. You know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So even though I knew I was confident it wasn't going to be what I was looking for, I went for it, hoping that my expectations were wrong. Alas, they were not. But we have beaten that dead horse Like an Emmy
Yeah,
kills Samus in one hit. So I don't know that we really needed to belabor the point much
yeah,
longer.
yeah. So you haven't picked up anything since then, though, huh?
I have actually.
I have actually.
It is a. It's not really a game. It's more of a
Mhm.
toy. It's called Townscaper.
Okay.
What it is you have just a large body of water, and you press a button, and this software application automatically places terrain on the ground.
Okay.
It's all sort of procedural. There is some underlying rules that the game adheres to, which determines whether it places ground, a building, a bridge, or any other number of kind of architectural structures. And all you're responsible for is telling it what to place next and what color it should be.
Okay.
There's no objectives, there's no rules, there's no win loss conditions. You just have this, and it's a relatively finite space, but you have this space that you can just basically build a city. And the game just programmatically fills in the spaces between.
Huh.
It's pretty it's great. It's sort of a nice meditative experience. It's got there's a fun sense of discovery in that I didn't really know how to create sort of courtyards, grassy courtyards
Hmm.
until I accidentally did it, and it was like, oh, that was fun. Like, it was a nice little surprise, right? Like, oh, I didn't know that the game could do this. So far, all I've been really doing is sort of experimenting and pushing the boundaries of what the game engine does, and try to sort of reverse engineer the underlying algorithms that control the generation of the structures.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's been really fun. It's nothing serious. I often just will put it on in the background while I'm listening to a podcast,
Hmm.
or I'm on a phone call or something like that, because it doesn't. There's not really a lot of mental energy that goes into it. It's
Hmm.
just a fun little toy, and sometimes like digital toys are fun, you know. So
How did you
and
come across this thing?
well, I saw it on YouTube. It was an indie project that was part of some sort of a contest or a game jam. And I'm like, oh, that's clever. And I had forgotten about it. And then it came out on the Switch, and I'm like, oh, there's that clever little toy that I was thinking about, and then I didn't buy it because I was doing other things. And I guess I purchased so many games, drunkenly, I'll add, that I had accumulated a bunch of these gold coins or points or whatever that Nintendo gives you every time you buy a game.
Yeah.
And so I was able to just get it for free. I mean, it was like
Okay.
$6, so it wasn't breaking the bank or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
And so for $6, I went, okay, that's fine. It's no cost to me. So I downloaded it, and I'm glad I did. It's a fun little toy. It's not like anything exciting, just a fun little toy.
Hmm. So it doesn't take up much space, obviously. I'm assuming it's pretty.
No, I mean, I would assume that it's less than 2 gigs, and all of that is art assets, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean that's my suspicion, and even then, I suspect that the art assets aren't particularly heavy. Oh, excuse me. Ugh. So, but yeah, no, it's a fun toy. I would definitely like check out a YouTube video of it. It's not a game. I would definitely not describe it as a game,
Hmm.
but I think toy is a perfectly reasonable descriptor of it from just a mechanics standpoint.
Yeah. At first, I thought you were talking about physical toy, like the Mario Kart racing
Oh yeah, no, no, no,
car type of thing. But that's not the case in this.
no.
Okay.
It's a digital toy.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's what I've been watching some TV. The last couple of weeks have been insanely busy. So I did the sound design on a couple of plays. We had rehearsal and put on one of the plays over the course of last week, and it was stressful but successful. The play that came out of it that my girlfriend wrote was quite phenomenal. She has more talent than really is fair, in my opinion, and I think she should share that with people more. But it was quite good, and I was happy to be part of it. But that was, that consumed basically my entire week last week, because I was also writing a new issue of that Minecraft magazine that I work on. There's some really big stuff afoot in the world of Minecraft soon, and it always amazes me every time they announce a new update, because I remember playing Minecraft when it was just this Java applet that you paid $15 for, and it literally just was an executable that sat on your desktop, right? And now it has become this,
it's
like
huge.
Colossus, and it's pretty crazy. Like, yeah.
It's funny how it's still a relevant game, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Is it a game? I don't even know if it's a game really. It's more.
I think it definitely is now. I mean, obviously there's creative mode, which makes it more of just a toy, right, to play with. But there's also survival mode, where you have hunger and health to deal with, and there are enemies that are trying to kill you, and the main point of the game is to survive as long as you can. Although, like many of these survival games, and it's one of the reasons why I don't particularly care for survival games very well, if you get good enough, the whole survival aspect kind of disappears, because you've gotten all the items, and you've gotten all the upgrades, and you've gotten the game basically working on autopilot, and the only thing that you're doing is just tweaking statistics after a certain point.
Yeah, it's funny. I have this game in my Steam account just sitting there called Don't Starve.
Yeah.
It was a pretty popular game for about a minute, it felt like. I'm not sure how it is though, but it looked like a survival type of game. And
yeah, it's exactly what it seems like. The weird part about Don't Starve is that the company Clay Interactive started doing, and that's KLEI, not CLAY. They started doing like really hardcore action games. So they did Shank and Shank 2 and Mark of the Ninja, and then they released this weird kind of survival game, and it was really like, it surprised everybody, because it was such a departure from their usual fare. And then it was their biggest hit, and I lost track of the company after that, because I didn't care about Don't Starve, and they worked on that for a really long time. They did like a multiplayer expansion, all these other additions to it, and I didn't like the base game, and so I just sort of stopped following the company. But
yeah, it's funny because like they did like Don't Starve Together or something like that.
Yeah, that was the multiplayer version.
Yeah. So yeah, I have no opinion on it because I haven't had a chance to play it. There's a couple of games that kind of fall through the crack that I feel like I kind of regret not playing. I mean, I guess I can play Don't Starve still. I mean, it seems like it's just a single player experience. You kind of play it for a while.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you don't have to play the multiplayer. It's just I don't know much about it, but I suspect that it's more of a metrics or statistics change than a fundamental change to the nature of the gameplay, right? Like, enemies maybe hit harder, or there's less resources or something to sort of scale up the difficulty to compensate for more people playing at the same time. But I don't know specifically. But in any case, yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. Oh, and I speaking of survival games, actually, I've been trying to find games to play with my friend Steven, who is living in Canada now. And we are playing this thing, and the jury is still out on it, because again, I don't love survival games, but it was just something to play with him, and it wasn't particularly expensive. A game called Raft, which is another survival game.
Uh-huh.
But the basic premise of the game is when you start the game, you are on a raft that is
Okay.
made up of 4 tiles. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And debris, which you can use as resources, starts floating by. And the
Okay.
debris is perpetual. It never stops.
Okay.
And there's a shark that swims around underneath you
Okay.
that, if you jump into the water, will kill you. Not instantaneously, but eventually. And occasionally takes a bite out of your raft.
Okay.
And then
All
the
right.
rest is usual survival game fare. You have to use your resources to balance thirst and hunger and constructing things, right? And so you start by taking the very basic elements of the debris that floats by, wood planks, pieces of plastic, palm fronds, things like that, and you make very basic tools, which then you can use to make more complicated tools and generate more complex. It's the basic
Mhm.
survival game loop. There's nothing particularly innovative about the experience other than the conceit that you're on a raft, and occasionally you'll float by an island or some other things where you can get special resources you can't get otherwise, and
Okay.
that's it. That's the game. That's Raft. So I've been playing that
Can
with
you actually,
my buddy for a little bit.
can you actually beat that game by floating to a city and going, "Yay, we survived"? That kind
No,
of thing.
like a lot of survival games, there's no end. You just get to the point where the actual underlying threats that drive you in the beginning fall away.
Just yeah.
Yeah.
And you can play on multiplayer.
Yeah, you can play multiplayer or single player.
So you're playing with your friend Steven, and you're just both on the raft and just have to divvy up resources and stuff like that to survive, pretty much. Huh. That's interesting. I mean, kind of an isolated, weird. It almost feels kind of claustrophobic though, sitting on a little piece of
Well, you can.
raft.
The goal is you expand the size of the raft. So
Oh.
it starts as a 2x2 raft, but
Mhm.
then one of the earliest, default recipe pieces that you have is a crafting hammer, and the crafting hammer by default can make more raft tiles. And
Oh,
so
nice.
the
Okay.
goal is to expand the size of the raft. And if you look at videos of the like the trailer of the game, it kind of gives you a hint of the scope of it. You can basically build these floating mansions, right? You could build like multiple level structures on this raft. There's no physics, right? So you don't have to worry about the raft sinking or anything like that.
Mhm.
So you can build these massive structures just by expanding the size of the raft, and you can build sails and paddles to control the direction it goes and things of that nature.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting take on the survival genre, in as much as you are bound to this one structure that you're trying to grow out,
Mhm.
right? But it's not like revolutionary in any sense of the word.
Mhm.
Like Subnautica is set on a water planet. You do a lot of underwater and you know exploration, and there's a ton of structures that you build in Subnautica as well. So
Huh. Well, that's I don't know. That type of game doesn't sound. It sounds like I would get bored really quick with a game like that after a while. I think once you know what the threat is and you're just kind of staring at ocean, I think I don't know if it scratched the itch for me. Um,
it is interesting. It's not my cup of tea either, and it's interesting because, like, just as a bit of an aside, my least favorite aspect of the newest Animal Crossing um, was the crafting aspect of it. It is nice in that it's an alternate way to get items, but then
mhm.
looks like you got a double. Oh, never mind. That's just off by one. Um, 294 looks like it's off a frame.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. There we go.
Um, anyway, um, but then all of the tools now, or most of the tools now, are craftable,
Mhm.
and they also have durability and they break. and that's a
no.
real it's a real pain in the ass for things like shovels and fishing
Wow.
rods, which you use constantly. And
Wow. Even Dark Souls has impact on Animal Crossing.
yeah, exactly. And it's so bizarre. The consequence of it, and this is why it's bad game design, is that you end up just keeping the basic crafting materials for shovels and fishing rods and whatever, whatever tool you find yourself using a lot, just perpetually in your inventory, right? You always have branches, you always have stone, you always have a few other pieces
Because you always have to.
because you're always going back and crafting it. And you also, most people who aren't doing like show islands that they put up on TikTok or whatever, you'll visit people's islands and they literally have crafting tables placed everywhere on the map, so that you can just like, oh, I broke my axe cutting down this pine tree. I don't have to go very far to get to a crafting table, right? And it's not aesthetically pleasing, but it is mechanically functional, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a real failure, in my opinion, that they added this mechanic that encourages you, almost forces you, frankly, to change your behavior to support the mechanic, right? Like you lose inventory spots because you have to keep these materials with you on hand, because the time requirements to go back and go to your storage and retrieve wood and blah 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 just to make another shovel is ridiculous. So it's just easier to lose the inventory slots and just keep that material on you at all times, right? So it's really disappointing in that regard. I mean, that's really my only pain point in Animal Crossing. Otherwise, I'm extremely excited about the new expansion that comes out on Friday.
So, do you know what's coming out in the expansion at all, or like?
Yeah, I mean it's a ton of features. So they're adding Brewster back in, who's a pigeon who runs a cafe in the museum. He was in and none of this. If you've played Animal Crossing, let me preface this. If you've been playing Animal Crossing for as long as I have, there's nothing new that you're going to get here, right?
Oh.
It's all features. Well, that's not entirely true. They're adding like some farming crops that you can grow and then harvest and then craft into decorative items for your house. So you can like craft a pot pie, or you can craft a stew, and then it's a decorative item. It doesn't really do anything. You can eat it, but it doesn't do anything. It's new like decoration items that you can place in your house or wherever you'd like to. So it's just, that's the only like entirely new system that's being added. But Brewster's coming back, and the Cap'n is coming back. The Cap'n is a kappa, which is a Japanese oni, or no, it's a Japanese yokai. I don't think it's not a demon, I don't think. But and anyway, sorry, getting into the esoterica of Japanese supernatural philosophy. But so he's back, and Brewster is back, and they're adding a farming mechanic, and they're adding like a new item so you can place ladders around your island to make it easier to climb up and down different parts of the island without having to do an entire like ladder or entire staircase.
Oh,
They're
okay.
also adding the ability to add 2 more staircases and 2 more bridges to your island, which will it'll help a lot for people who are doing a lot of decorative stuff. They're also adding like a new I don't remember what it's called, but it's a new space that you can visit, where older characters like the mayor Tortimer will hang out, and you can invite people to hang out there and take photos with them and that kind of stuff. And that's all the free stuff. I mean, it's a lot of free stuff. All of it has existed in other Animal Crossings before, but it is new to New Horizons, so it'll be new to anybody who's never played Animal Crossing before.
So, is this version of Animal Crossing the most all-encompassing out of all of them because of this?
Without a doubt, it's sort of like the it's like the Super Smash Brothers Ultimate of Animal Crossing.
Okay.
Because in addition to all that free content, there's a paid DLC that also comes out on Friday, which basically takes the spin-off game Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer
Mm-hmm.
and puts it into Animal Crossing New Horizons, and they're calling it Happy Home Paradise instead of Happy Home Designer. But the mechanics are 100% the same as Happy Home Designer in that you talk to villagers, they tell you what kind of house they want, and then you build that house to their specifications, and that's it. And it was weirdly compelling. I played that game way more than I was expecting to when it came out.
Yeah.
So that's like a $25 expansion pack. And that will, short of the weird board game Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival that no one except me and my close friends Jose and Barbie, we would play that all the time with their kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we did it because we as adults could sit and keep chatting, right? Because it wasn't like Mario Party. There's no mini games or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You literally just moved around a game board, and whatever space you landed on awarded you happy points and bells. And the goal of the game was just purely luck. Whoever had the most happy points, I think, at the end of the month, right? The month won the board game, right? There was nothing. It was like the most relaxing, meditative board game you could possibly imagine. So it made sense for the Animal Crossing brand. But the adults could talk. Oh, I think you got double 215.
Oh,
or
thanks.
115. The adults could talk and have drink a beer and relax, but then the kids could play along, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could help because there wasn't a lot of fine motor skill. There wasn't a lot of Twitch gaming. And so it was this very, very specific game that only a very narrow section of people would enjoy, but it was literally right up our alley because we could go hang out, be adults, but also enjoy the company of their kids, right? And they've got great kids, so it was a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
But short of Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, every mechanic that has basically ever been in Animal Crossing, minus a few esoteric things like manning the lighthouse, which was only ever in the very first Animal Crossing.
Uh-huh.
Basically everything at this point, come Friday, will be in Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Wow. That's pretty cool if you have Animal Crossing as a game or you're a fan of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Oh no. I'm looking forward to it. I plan on diving back in and spending a little bit of time with it.
and Animal Crossing is a meditative game too, kind of like.
Oh yeah, big time. Very, very meditative. Yeah. It's another game where I could just kind of have it on in the background.
Yeah.
While I was listening to a podcast or listening to music. It was really perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in fact, today, while I was working, I just found a YouTube stream of Animal Crossing music and just kind of had that on in the background while I was working.
That's funny. You should try to see if you can find a YouTube stream of somebody just playing Animal Crossing.
No, the music is good, but no, I don't. That's not meditative. That's just like you're doing it wrong, right? I just have judgments about how they were playing Animal Crossing, and nobody wants that.
Yeah. When I hear you rave about Animal Crossing, I'm tempted to do it to pick it up again. But again, I'm the type that's doing it wrong, but also trolling again with my favorite shoveling characters and trapping them around around divots so they're trapped on their own little grassy island. They can't. Sad for days.
Actually, it's easier than ever to do that now.
Oh, no.
Because they've added terraforming to the game, and so you can just like trap them on an island by themselves if you really want to, right? Like you can just dig a moat around their house and they'll be forever trapped there.
I would love that. That's what I would be doing. I'd be completely destructive.
But the game gives you a remarkable amount of freedom to do it, though. I mean, a surprising amount of freedom given how Nintendo is usually so stingy with that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's funny. That's nice. They still let you be a jerk. That's good.
Oh yeah,
So
oh yeah. No, if anything, it's easier to be a jerk now, because you can add water, you can add cliffs, you can completely change your island. I've seen people, you know, um, they literally that you can move all of the houses and all the structures onto the beach, right at the edges of your town, and
mm-hmm.
those are the only non-changeable features is the beach and where the mouths of the rivers are, right?
Hmm.
But I have seen people literally cut down every tree, pluck every flower, remove all of the foliage from the game, and then use the terraforming to eradicate all the landmass. So it's just water on this like archipelago of sandy beaches, and then rebuild their entire island from scratch, changing all the waterways, changing all of the cliffs, changing every aspect and every feature of their island to have exactly the geography and the topology that they want.
Wow.
It's really the amount of work that goes into it. I saw recently someone maxed out because the Switch over time will tell you how many hours you've put into the game approximately.
Uh-huh.
Someone took a picture of their time committed to Animal Crossing, and the Switch caps out at 9,999 hours.
Jeez.
And he knows this because he broke 999,000 hours in Animal Crossing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Wow.
Now, admittedly, I have in upwards of 350 hours in Animal
Yeah.
Crossing, and that's
hmm
a lot. That's a lot of time for anybody. But
Really? I wasn't sure like how much time people sink into that game.
it really depends. I mean, obviously, you've got one end of the spectrum at over 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I think personally, 350 hours is a lot. I mean, for me, I mean, my Smash Brothers time isn't even that high. It's close, but it's not as high as
hmm
Animal Crossing, right?
hmm
So, well, we're at oh man, I lost track of time. We're at almost 33 minutes here.
All right. Well, we'll call it good then for tonight.
We're almost toward you're about halfway, 2/3 of the way through Act 2 at this point, cleaning up
Yeah,
your
pretty
sequence
much.
cuts.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. But if you're watching this sometime in the future, you can definitely dig up all of the juicy Animal Crossing. Like, don't vote for Eric. He likes Amiibo Festival, right? I mean, it'll sink any campaign that I work on moving forward. So I've admitted a deep dark truth, I feel like. But in any case, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be here next week at the same time. You can always find us at calamityjane.rocks, which will take you to our Patreon site. We'd love it if you joined us and helped us make this cartoon. Otherwise, until next time, stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Night, everybody.
Night.
All right, that's